Hi, everyone. I'm Patrick DeVilbiss, Offering Manager for Trade and Supply Chain Finance at CGI. I'm thrilled to be participating in our panel today, Growing Your Business in the Evolving Trade Ecosystem. To discuss this topic, I'm joined by an esteemed panel of fellow industry experts. Daria Johnen, Global Product Head for Open Account at HSBC. Parvaiz Dalal, Global Head of Payables Financing at Citi. And Sudhir Dole, CEO of the Trade Information Network. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I wanted to start by framing our topic before we get started. We certainly live in interesting times in the world of trade with a plethora of new networks and consortia that have kind of sprung up, each catering to either a different market segment or potentially a point of time within the physical supply chain. And these networks are driven by a variety of actors, whether they be FinTechs collaborating with banks to provide channel access to corporate customers, or the banks themselves working in tandem to provide connectivity between corporate clients and opening up access to new financing opportunities, which frankly otherwise might not have existed. All this is happening in a time where data has become as critical as cash in hand. Access to corporate customer data, particularly where it can be verified and trusted, allows banks to better manage and feel a level of comfort in providing financing to customers who might otherwise not be able to receive it. The more data you have as banks, not just from your direct customer, but potentially from their counterparties or related transactions, the better off you are in terms of providing working capital while minimizing risks and helping all of us grow global trade flows. So kind of with that in mind, and knowing that we all want to grow global trade, I'd like to take a step back and talk about how you as businesses, you as banks are looking to thrive in that environment. So we'll go to a few questions for our panelists. And Daria, I'd like to start with you from an HSBC perspective. As a leading trade finance bank, what have been the greatest growth opportunities for you over the last 2 to 3 years?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting to speak at this panel. I will start with saying that historically, each big step change in supply chains has been driven by the interplay of policy, technology, or customer demand changes. And we started noticing big changes happening already pre-COVID. On policy side, we witnessed the rise of protectionism and tariffs. Technology has been rapidly evolving, and we have seen changes in what is being traded from physical to digital, be it digital printing instructions or technology companies providing infrastructure as a service. On consumer side, we have seen major shifts from west to east, driven by 3 billion people joining the middle income ranks by 2050. We see a preference for sustainable goods and services, shifts from B2B to B2C models, rise of everything as a service. So there has been quite a lot of change even before COVID happened. And all those changes have been impacting how the companies think about their supply chains. And in particular, we noticed a shift away from thinking about supply chains optimized for lean, efficient, and just in time, and thinking about supply chains in terms of viability, resilience, sustainability, which were underpinned by a broad understanding of what constitutes value and corporate purpose. Now, trade today is not easy, and it's not digital yet. And there is as you said, there is a plethora of platforms through which various parts of trade journeys happen. But still, we observe quite a silo approach to trade, where we have logistics, insurance, payments, invoicing happening in different parts of the infrastructure, sometimes digitally, sometimes not. Now, as digitization of trade accelerates, we will see a digital thread that will come through all those aspects of trade and will connect all those digital and not so digital islands, disrupting business models, connecting businesses, goods, people in wider ecosystems, which will then create value and efficiencies, but also will release huge amount of data. Now, this data will allow us to then connect to yet opportunities we don't know about, also operate more sustainably for longer term, and then generate value that goes way beyond the transaction itself. And technology obviously is a key enabler and will play an enormous part in this.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daria. Parvaiz, we'll come to you next. From a Citi perspective, as one of the largest global trade banks, what do you see as the greatest challenge or opportunity for your corporate clients?
No, thank you very much, Patrick, for having me. And as my fellow expert Daria mentioned, I think we are seeing a shift from the physical movement of the goods to B2B, to B2C, to B2B to C, right? And the entire e-commerce is evolving. And I think it demands, or the nature of the flow and the speed at which the transactions are happening, it requires coupling the trade financing element by authenticating the source level information, the data genuinity, the scalability, the digitization nature, the authenticity and the reliability of the information that is flowing in into the banks to make an informed decision. I think it is critical that a partnership, the technology, the digital in nature, the authenticity, the reliability, and the gold source are tapped by the bank in making that decisions. Point number one. It also has to be global in nature. We operate more than 80 countries globally, offer consistent solutions across the globe in a very seamless manner on a platform, and hence the globality for is the most important factor. The second thing, and I would agree with Daria on the sustainability, because we have seen the COVID disruption and how the banks have stepped in to continue to offer funding remotely and on an ongoing basis. I think the sustainability element is it's dead critical, and we need to all be learning from the experiences that we just came out of COVID, and has to have that in mind. Now, as an organization, we always want to become a one-stop solutions to our clients with an aim to deliver an end-to-end solutions rather than a piecemeal or a product offering. And that is our aspiration. Now, we may not have every component of the solution in-house, and hence partnership and working with reliable counterparties is an extremely important element to complete the value chain of our clients. It could be the same flow, it would multiply and transfer with various counterparties and the universe which we may not be able to access it because of our footprint, because of our client coverage segment, etc. But that is where I think the partnership kicks in, with working with the reliable partner to complete that value chain and offer the one-stop solution. And we've been, working with many companies, including, I think, the Trade Information Network, where we are the founder bank, to get to the data reliability, to get to the authenticity, to get to the source level information, to create a globality in nature. And that is our aspiration, Patrick. Maybe it's a journey, as I agree with Daria. There are islands of pockets which are digital in nature. There are physical component. There are component which we desire to capture, and we need to complete that. But then we have to come together as the fellow industry experts and make this journey more and more seamless for our clients to get where they want to achieve.
Absolutely, that's very good insight. Sudhir, I'd like to bring you into the discussion from the Trade Information Network perspective. So as part of the broader trade ecosystem, how is the Trade Information Network helping banks on this journey?
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks, CGI, for having me today on this panel. I think there are very few certain points which both Daria and Parvaiz made, and I would like to talk about them in connection with Trade Information Network. So one message which is coming out very clearly is that large corporates want their supply chains to be sustainable. Daria made this point: resilient and stable. And this has become more important, of course, during the COVID times. I think what is also very clear is that as these banks who are taking care of these corporates, they are hearing very clearly that large corporates want end-to-end solutions, which is what Parvaiz spoke about. It's very clear that large corporates are saying, please help our suppliers right from the initial pre-shipment stages of financing to the post-shipment. Don't give us piecemeal solutions. The other important thing which is coming out clearly is that banks want access to the golden source of data. And this is a point again Parvaiz made, and this is what Trade Information Network looks to address. So I would like to illustrate. The best illustration is obviously a live case which we did recently, which was for Deutsche Bank and Roche. And here Deutsche Bank was able to finance a supplier to Roche because it had more visibility on the transactions between Roche and its supplier. And what this case obviously is a great illustration for the pharma industry. We are also hearing from our shareholder banks that there is similar interest across other industries. I would like to specifically highlight the apparel industry. So large retailers, whether it's the US or Europe, have started talking to our shareholders on how their supply chains for the apparel industry can be supported, especially because most of these suppliers are today, for example, in the emerging markets. So, and that brings the point about partnership, which Parvaiz spoke about, right? Banks in larger economies working with banks in emerging markets to really provide end-to-end solution for the larger corporates. Now, I would talk about two challenges as to, while we have created a platform, we have created a network, and like you very correctly said, there are many consortiums. Why haven't they scaled up, and what are the challenges that are there in this scaling up? And there are two which are very apparent, and we have proactively addressed these two. The first is that sometimes the fees are prohibitive, which means that new banks are not able to join the platform just because the fee structure is not great. We have made the fee structure very attractive, and we are in fact made it such that for early joiners there's a clear benefit. So really you can see that the banks can benefit in terms of joining early. The second thing which is very important is that the onboarding process is very complex with banks to onboard any platform. And what we have done is that we have kept the entire package so that banks can join more easily. We have leveraged our learnings in the past 6 months to do that. So I would just like to say, summarize, right? Using a platform like ours, which gives access to the golden source of data, enables banks to reduce their risks and losses in their current business, and secondly, tap new business opportunities by leveraging the data.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Sudhir. So we're going to go to a final question. We'll do this as a bit of a round robin for everyone here. We'll go through the same order that we had before. So we'll start with Daria. But before I say that, I'll preface it by just pointing out that we on the CGI side, we have deep experience working with not just the banks here, but other global financial institutions looking to embrace transformation through innovations like DLT, artificial intelligence, or more fundamental change, things like modernizing your backends, enabling API integration, looking at cloud readiness strategies. But ultimately, the conversation we've had here and that framing leads me to the question that is this: how do you as banks need to retool yourself and embrace innovation for competitive advantage? Ultimately, how do you win in a market and the ecosystem that we're in today? And Daria, we'll start with you.
Sure, Patrick, and you're absolutely right. I think it's we have to retool across various lines. The first line is how do we conduct our business? That's our key processing capabilities. They have to be scalable, they have to be real time, they have to be efficient and cost effective. Then new data capabilities. Yes, indeed, data becomes really a key component of our journeys because it allows us to be competitive with our clients by tailoring the offering to them, but also reducing the cost of doing business by automating some of the more cost-consuming journeys, such as, for example, compliance. So, for example, the automation that you can achieve by implementing some customer surveillance systems is really quite important and has major effect on doing business. So indeed, there has been quite a few lines where banks have been investing, and this investment will continue to make sure that we stay relevant, competitive, and abreast with the new developments of technology, and our capabilities stay competitive.
Great, thanks. Parvaiz?
Thank you, Patrick. I think there are multiple data points we talk about before in the first question, where we talked about COVID, where we talked about e-commerce, where we talked about B2B to B2C. And I think the desire by us is to do an end-to-end solution coming in early in the stages, upward stream financing, where you look at it either a deep tier, second tier, purchase order, et cetera, which is the same flow of the goods. The goods are remaining the same. It's changing multiple counterparties in the multiple cycles. And we want to get into the end-to-end solution. Now, it is critical more so post this events, COVID, e-commerce, etc., because the clients would like to work with a service provider which can offer scale, which can offer globality, which can offer changes, and which can cater to all sectors, new and wider. And hence the entire digitization, the entire conceptual of going in early has to be delivered to the client. And it is very critical that we have to be ready to do that. And obviously, we are working with multiple sets of FinTechs, partners, bank independent platforms, etc., to help our client achieve this goal. So that is what we are doing currently, Patrick, as we speak in this journey, including sustainability, right? It's a big event which has happened that we started imbibing sustainability into our flows on not just client sustainability parameters, but how do we deliver on a sustainable basis. So this is where I think we are investing our time, effort, and money to make sure that we continue to remain an important and an end-to-end service provider to our clients.
Fantastic, thank you. And Sudhir?
So when we talk about innovation, I believe that there is, of course, the technology aspect, but there is also the human aspect. And when I talk about the human aspect, I would refer to the collaboration and the partnerships, which are very key part of our platform. So to take the example again, which we had of Roche as a large buyer. Now, let's say that Roche has a supplier in Malaysia, for example. Now, they would definitely be looking at working closely with Deutsche Bank to identify a Malaysian bank who can come on this platform and service the supplier in Malaysia, right? So what is very critical here is that if a Malaysian bank joins the platform early, they'll be the people whom Deutsche Bank will pick up the phone and call. So essentially, you get a first mover advantage. And that's why our platform is essentially a very inclusive platform, which has been built by these 6 banks, but as a utility for the industry. And we believe that by collaborating with each other, the banking industry can add greater value to their clients.
Great, thank you, Sudhir. So this has been an outstanding discussion. We had some really good insights. Certainly silos are going away. Digitization as a trend is here to stay. The authenticity of the data that you have is absolutely critical. There's a desire to work with partners to really provide that end-to-end product to all of your customers. And ultimately, some of that starts at, certainly that pre-shipment side of things is really critical. And all of that's driven by collaboration. So from my perspective, the takeaway is that we're in an ecosystem-driven world. Banks really need to embrace that if they want to grow their trade business. And they need to deliver a strategy that delivers value and financing to their customers where and when they need it. Ultimately, no one is an island in the new world. And the faster trade banks embrace that, the faster they're going to grow their business. So thank you to the panelists for participating today. And thank you to everyone either listening at your home offices or your real offices. If you'd like to learn more about any work that the banks represented on the panel or the trade information do, or alternatively, if you'd like to learn about the strategy and operations and technology global banking services that CGI offers, please feel free to reach out to us. We will have our contact information available to you as part of the slides. Thank you.